Hello, I'm Colton Muller,
I'm Raja.
I'm Logan Marcus.
and we are the Hunted Few. This is our game demo video. First, we're going to talk about our basic game design and development process. So, for brainstorming, we started off by playing a bunch of old Metroidvanias, just kind of getting a feel for the genre, the specific quirks, like what we like and don't like. I think Raj can talk more about that.
Right. So our inspiration was from both like the old NES Metroid games and also from the Castlevania games. Basically, we wanted a tight map design where we could have the player go from room to room in a somewhat open-ish like linear space, and they would be able to find secrets throughout the map. And the second thing that we were going for was an AI based off Aliens Isolation, where it would seem to be learning as the game progressed.
So once we had played through games, we kind of thought about what aspects of level design we liked, what power-ups we liked, different weapons, things like that. And then we moved on to actually implementing our game. And for that, we had a couple of different types of documentation. We used Trello in order to organize our stories, make sure we're all on the same page. And we used a variety of Unity tutorials to play through the game.
Some playtesting included like using friends and roommates with them play through the game, and then some recommendations they made were like at first the boss was chasing the player and killing them almost immediately. So they recommended maybe the boss running away after taking a hit. After a while, maybe the boss gets more aggressive towards the end of the game.
Just that way, the player has a chance to actually explore and see more of the game rather than like they see the boss and the game's over.
Another thing that we had to change after playtesting was that the player character itself would move around in a very floaty, high jumping way, and it felt like the controls were a little bit laggy. Not because they were lagging, but just the physics that we had implemented in the first place. So we made them a little bit tighter, faster, and the jumps were more grounded.
For our actual design methodologies, we used Agile, just basic 2 week sprints. We would all get together, say what we needed to do, and then start working on that, meeting intermittently throughout to decide on what to do. We used Trello to organize our different user stories in order to make sure no one was doing the same thing as someone else and that we were getting everything done. And in addition to Trello, we also used Git in order to make sure, since we were all working on the same project, that we didn't have merge conflicts, that everything was going smoothly. So we did the basic, you would make a pull request, someone would review it and make sure all your stuff was good, and then you would merge it in.
Some team roles where we were all developers, and then Colton was the art director, Raj was the level design, and I was head of AI.
Most of our like roles, like the team roles that we just specified, mostly played out during the first half of the sprints, while towards the end, all of us worked on bugs, all of us worked on polishing the game, making it the final product that we have now.
So here is the main menu for our game. We have a nice scrolling background. We have a couple different buttons. If the user wants to see the actual controls, we tell them for WASD move, space to jump, left click to shoot. When you start the game, you're placed into the level. So when the player has a weapon, they can run and they can shoot. We have ladders for the player to climb up. We have a trigger system around our weapon pickups. So when you run and pick up a weapon, it gets equipped into your inventory. You can then switch between the items in your inventory. And as you can see in the top left corner, it swaps the active picture out so the user knows which weapon they're currently selecting. They can fire the different weapons. Our different weapons shoot different projectiles and have different fire rates. So rocket launchers shoot and they have more damage, however they fire slower and their projectile is larger. Our actual collision system is based on where the projectile is moving and what it hits. That way the player actually has to hit the thing they're trying to shoot. So here we have our AI. The boss is currently in its patrol mode, so as you can see it's just simply patrolling around the map. If it ends up seeing the player, it'll aggro on the player and follow them. So now the boss is aggroed on the player and it's actively trying to chase the player down unless the player runs too far away, and then the boss decides that it's not worth it and he runs away. That way we don't have the boss just pointlessly chasing the player around, so we keep the element of surprise. If we shoot the boss a couple times, he takes health and then he learns that the player has a gun, so he starts shooting at the player. And as you can see, whenever the player takes damage, his health bar goes down and the screen flashes red. If we wait until the boss runs over, he attacks us, and we get a game over screen. The reason the boss did so much damage then is because he was more aggro than he was before, because the player had done more damage to him. So as the player does more and more damage, the boss gets more aggressive. He attacks for more, he aggros for longer, and he has a larger sight radius for when he sees the player.
In one of the corners of the map, we have one of our main power-ups, which deals with shooting. Normally, you can only shoot left and right. With this power-up, you can shoot anywhere using the mouse, and that way it uses raycasting, allowing you to shoot the boss from anywhere on the map within a certain distance.
So to conclude our project, we want to talk about stuff that we want to add on in case we were to work more on this. For starters, we want to make the map a lot more expansive, a lot bigger, hold more power-ups. And secondly, we want the boss AI to come off better that he is learning. Though he is getting faster as the player progresses, and though he has more powers as the player gets stronger, I'm not sure if this is perfectly well communicated, so that could be our next step. This has been The Hunted Few.